Hello, online pipe community. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. And today I am with
AKJPiperman,
it.
Bruce.
It
Today.
is great to have you with us today, Bruce. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Yeah. Um, well, right now I'm just working. I'm on disability because I had suffered from long-term COVID. Uh, uh, Basically working on my father's work, which is martial arts, but I've got to get back to that because it's a physical trait. I started smoking October, end of September. uh, because I was just absolutely tired of being sitting around and doing nothing with no energy. So I wanted to have something fun to do and something to go outside and be able to enjoy the weather with. And so I started looking at YTPC, and I was like, wow, I enjoy these pipes. I enjoy the art of these beautiful pipes, and then the people that was at YTPC were so encouraging, and they talked about their lives, and they just were so interesting that I started getting into the pipe smoking itself, and I was just uh, interested in the YTPC almost right away, and it got me into it. So,
Well, before we get any further, let's do a little housekeeping. In a Peterson spigot, uh, gifted to me by Onion, this is my only really dedicated pipe. I'm smoking Sam Gawith Lakeland Dark, and this gets nothing but Lakelands, and all of my Lakelands go through it. What are you smoking there?
so smoking some early morning pipe in my Peterson's Advanced System Rocky Rusticated 9B.
That is a beefy looking pipe.
I like where you can get a nice grip, you know.
Yeah, and some of their textured pipes really do have a great feel. So, did you talking about how you got into the YTPC? Did you have any gateway channels? Any particular ones that caught you right in off the bat?
Um, I mean, 2 a.m. on the patio was huge. Um, he's a personable person. I mean, he's just a
Mhm.
really guy. He's got that relaxed, just existing kind of feel where you're at home with him. So I thought that that was really helpful with my healing when I needed kind of. It was like I was at his home. So I got a chance to be outside of my apartment.
Well, Johnny, if you're listening, don't let this go to your head, but I can tell you, Onion is just as wonderful in person as he is on his videos. He's a fantastic guy.
And then armchair, and
Another one.
just once I start, and mutton chop made it so much easier to learn how to do it without hurting myself.
I couldn't tell you how many of us, Mutton Chop was one of our early channels, just because I think so many of us found the YTPC looking for ways to save pipe smoking as a hobby when we knew that we were just doing it wrong. Uh, and I
My
know
working,
he was big for me too.
yeah.
So you've been at it here for 6 to 8 months.
Hmm.
Have you discovered a particular shape or manufacturer or artisan that you're gravitating toward?
Well, I tend to like the ones that hang naturally. Some of them fall, but not all of them because you got some interesting shapes. Um, been getting into church wardens recently.
Ah, you and Greg.
Yeah, I got a McQueen necromancer, which is actually a mage necromancer. I got a D15 from Peterson that I was going to send back because I thought it was like a toy, but turned out to be one of my favorite pipes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's an ebony, and it was light, and it was just so light, and it was so kind of thinned in the stem that I was afraid that maybe I got gypped, but it turned out it was actually one of my best smokes. So I'm starting to go into Peterson's. I got a nice pub pipe. I like my 9B. But Savinelli and Peterson's are pretty much my go-to for the most part.
Well, I think those are both good choices for folks that are starting out because they're so relatively affordable.
Which
You're,
is
I mean, both of them do make very high end pipes, but they have such a good offering in the $100 and even less range that it's hard to go wrong with them.
Yeah, I think that when you're dealing with costs and you got new people coming in like me, you want to get all the pipes, you want all the things, and yet your budget's screaming no.
Hmm.
I would love to get my hands on Dunhills. I would love to get my hands on some of these, uh, maybe even a commission. But until I can be able to kind of set that money aside for long
Hmm.
term, uh, Savinelli and Peterson's are a really great go to.
Hmm. They certainly are. Now, you said you're smoking early morning pipe. Tell us a little bit about your blend journey. What did you start out on, and what have you started moving toward? Because nobody stays where they start.
No. So Sutliff is always a great starter. I did Q1 version of the Sutliff. It's inexpensive, which as we were talking about, and uh, it's a generic. Uh, I would say a go to for most people doing aromatics. So
I hear various things that it's either the top seller in the U.S. Both by direct brand as 1Q or rebranded by brick and mortars,
mm,
or the number two. It's always bandied about that that's one of the top sellers around, and yeah, it is a very a generic vanilla, literally vanilla smoke that everybody seems to at least like, even if it's not it's not everybody's favorite. Everybody likes it, and the room note, well, the ladies love it.
yeah, and it's gentle. It's not nearly as harsh as some of those aromatics can be.
Hmm.
Uh, Soon after that, I went through Sutliff, different flavors. Primarily, the pumpkin spice was something that was during that time of the season. So
Yeah.
I went to pumpkin spice, and I was afraid really to go to anything that would be English. I stuck with the aromatics. Um, and then I found myself with quote Blood Red Moon, and I was kind of stuck with that. But it's been an adventure ever since. I stick with Sutliff for the possibilities, and then if I like the matches, I go and I make a comparison between the actual flavored product and the Sutliff.
Yeah. No, how did you get into something like early morning pipe, which is definitely not an aromatic?
Mm-mm. So uh, I have what's called quiet times in the morning, and that's you read through your scripture and you have maybe a cup of coffee and you just kind of learn and you grow.
Hmm.
And I was like watching Hobbiton Piper. I think it was Hobbiton Piper, and he mentioned early morning pipe and the that it had these unique flavors. I got it, and I kind of got curious, so I looked into what that was, because it was like, well, early morning, maybe. And then how it actually enhances the flavor of coffee sometimes and all this kind of stuff. And I went, I better try this out. So I did the Sut Lift match, and that just did it for me. That was it. That flour, that Oriental mixed with the Virginias, mixed with, that it was complex, but it really did speak to me as, and I'm right now, I'm living in Omaha, Nebraska. So for me, that slight hay flavor, that mixed with the floury kind of like, that really does speak to me as a early morning.
Oh yeah,
So
I can imagine that. I lived in the Midwest when I was in high school, and we were in the middle of cornfields. So yeah, you'd get up in the morning and you'd smell corn, and by the middle of the afternoon, all you smelled was pigs. So yeah,
yeah, yeah,
take the bad with the good, I suppose, because we had a pig farm and a corn farm right next door. Uh, um, but yeah, that does evoke an agricultural, outdoorsy type thing when you get that right floral note.
yeah. I Omaha is a town, but then outside you get all that farmland. And my aunt, she lived with her second husband, and when you walked out into their porch, it was just fields of corn. And that sun hitting on the glance with the sunrise coming up,
Hmm.
it just, there's nothing that can really depict Americana like that. It's
Yeah.
just it, and so when I first tasted early morning, that's what I pictured. Sun rising on the cornfields, the farm smell, the whole thing. And I thought, this is a great smoke for quiet times.
Now, speaking of farm smell, makes me think of barnyard and manure, and that's how a lot of people describe haunted bookshop. Have you tried that one yet?
I am excited to try it though.
Have you got any?
No.
We'll get you hooked up after our interview,
Oh,
because
thank you so
that
much.
that's one of those love hate blends that I think everybody ought to try. But it has a most distinct musty aroma in the tin. I don't get that in the flavor at all. I happen to be one of them on the love side of the fence, and I'm happy to evangelize for haunted bookshop. It's just I love the stuff. But yeah, I just thought of when you said barnyard, and yeah, that's how that's how people very often describe that particular blend. Now, do you have any pipes that you have dedicated to either a blend or a type yet, like I did with this Lakeland to keep from ghosting my other pipes?
Um, I have one. I had gotten a state pipe from London, England, and recently I had gotten my grubby little paws on Captain Black grape. So it has been known to ghost a pipe or two. And so I said Cobb, but I was like, this is a nice little clincher. And so I thought, let's just go for it. And honestly, it hasn't ghosted that pipe.
Huh. Well, there are some other uh, not necessarily great, but wine topped um, blends that uh, could follow that once you run out of grape and can't find it anymore. In case it ever does ghost. Yeah, I have avoided that particular blend so far. I've been very successful in doing so. Um, I'm not an aromatic type to begin with, and the thought of smoking bubble yum just that that's not attractive to me. I know there are people out there who just love the stuff, but
For me, it's a go back to the kids. When you open up that canister, first thing I thought of is that great big league chew.
mm-hmm.
And
um,
then
Yeah.
When smoking it, it smells just like when you open up Crush, a bottle of Crush back in the 70s. You just that smell. It's definitely a once in a while thing. Like if you want to just be put and set back to those times, it's great. But if you get that too much, you can get sick to your stomach. It's so sweet.
Now, speaking of so sweet, have you tried then Sutliff's Molto Dolce or creme brulee?
Molto dolce, I did try. It is a brief sweetness, and then there's so many other flavors along with it that the vanilla no longer conquers it, and I like that. The sweetness of the honey does come through, and you get that little bit of caramel. I do like it, but for me, it's like Q1. It's a once in a while smoke. It's light. It's gentle. So it's a once in a while pleasure.
And unlike Lane's 1Q, it is wet.
Yeah.
Whereas 1Q really it's a little moist, but it doesn't burn like it. The Molto Dolce and creme brulee to me just wow, they smoke wet and hot. They need a lot of dry time.
I'd say maybe 20 minutes minimum.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm a little too impatient for that. All right, Bruce. Channel name. Some people's channel names are really obvious. Yours is not. AKJPiperman. What's up with that?
So my father was what do you call it? My father was one of the first creators of American mixed martial arts. So back in the 70s, he had opened up a school, and he came up with a name of the style by which he was pioneering in the mixed martial arts, which is AKJPiperman, AKJ. And so I have been given the mantle when my father passed away as Grandmaster, as well as my brother. So I figured, I'm going to be a Piperman, and it's kind of like a family uh, created entity, pioneered part of our history.
Hmm.
So, AKJ Piperman.
Very, very interesting. Most of us don't have a story like that. Me, I tend to be parsimonious, so it was a natural choice for me.
Right, right.
But
It's also,
there's no family story behind it. That's pretty cool.
well, thank you. Yeah, I've had an interesting life. It has been interesting.
So what what got you to go from watching videos to making videos?
Sapper Piper is Zach was really helpful with that. Um, he was making some videos. He was coming out of his shell, and we were kind of getting along. And he's like, "Well, now's your turn. You need to start coming out with something." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, putting myself out there right now." But I thought, yeah, I have something to say. I have things to go over. We could do some fun things with the channel. And I'm trying to do that right now with the Church Warden Wednesdays. I'm reading Beowulf, rewritten by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Hmm.
And I just figured, I could open up about my faith. I could open up about my life. I can be able to be a part of the community, and maybe it would help me also because going through that long COVID, I've been in the apartment kind of like a prison for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I just figured, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try it out. And I did. And I got a really positive response from everybody that I decided to just start making it a part of my life.
Yeah, it's a pretty welcoming community. I suppose when we can't monetize tobacco videos, we're less in competition with each other the way, you know, video channels dedicated to, other topics like barbecue or off-roading and things like that, cutthroat in terms of competing for views and advertiser dollars. Well, and uh,
That's here.
we can't do that, so it tends to be a much more cooperative and encouraging environment.
And it's interesting because, we always do our housekeeping, you know, and usually that's pretty much free advertising for these companies.
Yeah, it is.
And the reviews too. I mean, it's like when you go and you get a magazine about an auto magazine or something, you're really learning about these cars for dreaming of purchasing. And so what we're doing is pretty much free advertising for these people, which is good, I think, because without it, I think that the pipe industry would really take a slump in sales.
Oh, I don't know about that. The very fact that most of the people in the YTPC laugh at the thought of Captain Black Grape, and yet it was sold in tubs for decades. I we're a really small part of the pipe tobacco world. Um, the biggest sellers out there are still your tubbed codger blends, and things like that. The high end stuff that we really like is a small, at least in the U.S. It's a relatively small piece of the overall market. I
I
think
noticed,
it's growing though.
yeah, I noticed that there's a lot of things in different parts of the world where limitations are there and we only have a certain amount of blends.
Hmm. Yeah, we're lucky. I mean, Cornell and Deal alone has hundreds of blends in their catalog. The variety we have to choose from is absolutely phenomenal, just
I'm
unbelievable.
thankful for that.
Hmm.
I think one of my other ones, I did reach out into corn and deal world during the holiday season and got that corn cob pipe and a button of nose, and I used that in my the Christmas gift that my mom got me, which was that 2022 616 St. Nicholas.
Yeah. Well,
That was
that's a pretty popular Christmas blend.
I noticed so many of those blends, those themes get sold out so quickly.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of the seasonal stuff like that does. It does not survive on the shelves very long, but yeah, that one is definitely popular. Now, outside of pipes and MMA, what are some of your other interests and hobbies?
I am a nerd. Um, uh, I like video gaming. I like anything with imagination. Um, However, I think, and I'm probably going to be going back to it. Screenwriting. I do writing. I was for a while actually in film school, and I did take part in some of the professional film making. So
Hmm.
I find that enjoyable. Maybe even movie reviews, um, things like that. I'm deeply into film, motion pictures and such, especially.
Now that's an interesting addition. I don't know that I've heard anybody in our community um, say that they're you know into script writing. That definitely a different angle.
It's the minute I told them at the people at the film school that I see it. I don't just. It's like I'm watching the show before I write it. So I literally find things out for myself about these characters and new information as it's playing in my head.
Hmm.
And so when I told them that, they said, "Okay, listen, I got some people for you." And so some mentors like I had some good mentors. Terry, who was the first assistant to director to The Exorcist and Urban Cowboy, was one of my mentors long term, and he was brilliant to be around. I've had a lot of fun with him.
I imagine. Now, gaming, we've got a lot of gamers in the community. Are you into, racing games, first person shooters, massively multiplayer online role playing games? I forget how those are called, MMORPGs.
I love a good story. So
Okay.
when you some of these the broad based stories, I'm not. It's too loose. It's not some kind of structure. I want to know about these characters and the adventure they're going through. So things like Mass Effect, where yes, you still gotta you can go and do different things and you build that character, but there is a foundation, a boundary so that you can be able to be within the story and still be a part of that. I love stories. So um and then I would just do first person shooter.
Yeah, those were what I was most into back when I was doing gaming. I loved the original, well, it's Halo now. It was Marathon when it first came out. I loved Marathon. I loved the old Wolfenstein 3D Nazi killer game.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the original um, Call of Duty, where they
Oh
had campaigns, like across North Africa and Europe. Um,
yes,
I,
I
I
was
I really loved those, and the original Doom. I
big.
so I loved first person shooters, mostly because and when it comes to games, I don't like relying on other people, and so I'm a loner when it comes to that. I want to figure out how to get through a particular level on my own without, uh, you know, needing
Tomb,
other people to help me.
yeah, like Tomb Raider,
Oh,
or
yeah.
figuring out puzzles and you're getting it done yourself.
And the original on that was fantastic.
Yes,
The puzzles were very creative, but they also made sense in terms of the storyline. You're talking about storyline. Not all of your first person shooters really have a storyline. Doom, it's just kill bigger and badder guys. But yeah, that one, Tomb Raider, definitely had some storyline going on, and that was really cool. Very, very.
yes. I think that when see, our generation is a bit different than the current newer generations. I was born in the '70s, so I'm hearing the pinball transition, Atari transitioned
Mhm.
into Nintendo, and so on.
Pong.
So yeah, Pong. Yes, I remember being in the garage with my cousins playing Pong, and it being a big deal
It
because
was
you
the
got
coolest thing in the world. You could do it on your TV.
that, and everybody was like, "I want to turn, I want to turn."
Hmm.
I don't think that they can really get that nowadays, and so I think they're getting more into the exploratory, where they're learning about this new world, and the world is the story, not just the character you're playing.
Hmm.
And so, for me, that takes you out of the motion picture aspect and more into the avoidance of the real world. And I've had enough of that in the being caught into this apartment. That's just not my style.
Well, as we wind down here, this has been an awful lot of fun. I'm going to ask you a two-part question. One is, well, the first one is actually two parts too, so it's kind of a 2.5 or 3-part question. Um, what's your favorite thing about the YTPC? What keeps you here? And do you have any parting words or thoughts for our audience?
I think the greatest part about the YTPC is the people and getting to know them. It's really you and everybody that's been a part of the community in itself can it still exist without the pipe. but we enjoy the pipe so much, it really helps us it brings us together and allows us to be able to get to know each other. I love I love all the people. Kindness has always been a really great part I've seen. And so for me, the attraction on the YTPC is the people. You don't always have to be able to agree about everything. You just, but that's just it. Like, there's so many different adventures in different people.
Hmm.
I
And your parting thoughts.
The only way a successful relationship can be had between anybody is to allow people to be themselves and accept that you're not always going to agree on it. It's okay to not see things in the same way. And so my thoughts is step back, as I always say in my videos, take perspective on life for yourself and just take life one pipe at a time. Sit back and just let yourself be yourself. Let the world continue to be itself and enjoy what you got. And that's including the friendships and what you have in common.
Well, I can tell you, I have certainly enjoyed our chat. Folks, I hope you have too. If you've got a new or relatively small channel and would like to do one of these, please reach out to me. And until then, light something you like, might be a Lakeland. Enjoy your afternoon.